This week in Men in Black International Hits Theaters, that means it's time to stop and rank all 4 Men in Black films from the worst to the best. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Sean Chandler, and I started this channel because I was driving everyone around me crazy talking about movies way too much. If you can relate, you're probably in the right place and consider clicking that subscribe button. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Share your ranking of the 4 Men in Black films. We're going to disagree, and that's awesome because we can have a conversation about it. Let's just be respectful about it. One final thing before we get started, people ask me every single day where I get my posters, where I get my Funkos, and what equipment I use to shoot my videos. There's a link down below in the description that tells you what I use and where I got it. With that said, let's get started. Easily coming in last place is Men in Black 2. This is a big budget sequel, so bad that it's tough to know where to begin analyzing things. The ideas, the script, the execution are all awful. Right off the bat, this movie commits one of the cardinal sequel sins in that it undoes the entire end of the previous film. Agent L, the mortician that became Will Smith's partner at the end of the first film, returns back to the morgue, and Agent K returns to being in the Men in Black. And when Agent K does return to being in the Men in Black, everyone acts as if they didn't know that he was been missing for 5 years. And then on the villain front, they replace Vincent D'Onofrio's classic Edgar with Laura Flynn Boyle in lingerie acting like a cat in Heat. But where things get really unforgivable is that this movie has some of the worst special effects in CGI that I have ever seen in a big tentpole film. The movie had the budget to have good effects, but they just look horrible. One of the worst examples is Johnny Knoxville's two-headed character that it just looks abysmal. There's worms inside of the film that just look flat. Just for some reason, even though this movie came out 5 years after the original film, all of the special effects look much worse. Add to that, Barry Sonnenfeld's direction is surprisingly dull. There's a number of shots in the movie that are just bizarre angles and what he chose to do, and there's shots of like looking up at buildings and it's like, why of all the angles you could choose would you do this? There's shots that linger overly long on certain takes, and then the movie also has like an overly Looney Tunes sense of humor about it. There's a shot in the movie where Rip Torn at like 75 years old jumps up in the air and starts kicking an alien in the face like this, floating there for a little bit. In general, this really is one of my least favorite big budget blockbuster sequels that has ever been made. As a point of reference, there's a pretty big gap in quality in my mind between number 4 on my list and number 3 on my list. But in my mind, number 3 and number 2 on my list kind of run parallel to each other. They do different things wrong and different things right, and I enjoy them in kind of different ways. But both of them to me are kind of good enough sequels to Men in Black. In third place is Men in Black International. This is a perfectly serviceable addition to the Men in Black franchise that probably plays it way too safe and doesn't have enough creativity in the execution, the direction, or even the central ideas of this film. Now, the central mystery inside of this film, I think might be my favorite of the actual mystery plot lines out of all 4 of the Men in Black films. Now, granted, the actual mysteries have never been all that specifically interesting to me, but I think this one, the way the different layers to it kind of tie together, I think I enjoyed the most. All the actors they cast for the film are top-notch. The scene stealer here is Kumail Nanjiani as Pawnee, this pawn character. He gets like all the best lines in the movie and he's stealing scenes left and right. It's also a lot of fun to see Rebecca Ferguson in kind of a campier kind of fun role. Normally she plays serious stuff in everything I see her in, so it's just fun to see her in this type of film. Now, while all the actors are top-notch, charismatic, watchable, likable actors, the specific characters and performances, however, feel just kind of like generic blockbuster, quippy characters. When you talk about Chris Hemsworth, Tessa Thompson, Liam Neeson, they didn't do anything wrong, but there's nothing specifically interesting about what they're doing here. You feel like any other charismatic, likable blockbuster actor could have played these exact parts and you wouldn't have lost anything. And that's kind of the problem with this film in general. It doesn't make any big missteps. It has all the action, it's quick moving, and it's got all the jokes you're supposed to have, but it all just feels like the stuff you're supposed to have in a Men in Black film. Anyone could have directed it. It lacks any distinct, specific style or flavor. It doesn't embarrass itself, but it doesn't do anything to wow you or be memorable either. Our runner-up is Men in Black 3, a very enjoyable addition to the franchise that I think fumbles a little bit in its attempt to give a big emotional finale to the original trilogy. Will Smith is as energetic and likable as he's ever been inside of these films, and then it's a time travel story that sends Agent J into the past, opens a whole bunch of opportunities, and puts a new fun twist on the franchise. One of the standouts here is Josh Brolin as a younger, less cynical Agent K. He nails the mannerisms of Tommy Lee Jones, but he also shares a chemistry with Will Smith that Tommy Lee Jones shared with him, so it feels like you are seeing the same character in a younger, different phase inside of its life, and it was fun to explore him at this different time. Now, the movie takes a little bit of time to get going. It doesn't really find its groove fully until we do go into the past, and I don't think that final twist reveal inside of the film makes sense in light of the franchise in general, and it feels like they're trying to force something that doesn't feel true and organic to everything that's come before, so that kind of left the movie on a bit of a sour note for me. But the ride in general, I had a ton of fun seeing Will Smith go into the past and interact with Josh Brolin, and it had most all of the elements that I enjoy from these movies. But coming in first place, without question, is the original. This film was Will Smith at his prime, his most charismatic, his most quippy, and with fantastic chemistry with Tommy Lee Jones, who was also in his prime, and the two of them together on screen just made for a great duo. And one of the reasons it was so fun to see all of this was because of the world that they built, that it was fun to see Will Smith just doing his thing, discovering this new world of aliens all around him with this very deadpan, dry, cynical, cranky Tommy Lee Jones not impressed by any of it. And a big part of the reason that the world was so fun to explore is because of Barry Sonnenfeld's direction that is so vibrant, lively, kind of cartoonish in its own way, but everything is interesting. All the little details are fun, and the way creatures are designed, the way he kind of frames shots has a certain life to it that feels distinct to him as a director. Another one thing that makes this movie great is Vincent D'Onofrio as Edgar. In fact, he's so good in this role that a lot of people don't even realize that it's Vincent D'Onofrio in the role. When we rewatched it a couple weeks ago, my wife was like, wait, that's Vincent D'Onofrio? Like, she didn't know that, and she's seen this movie 50 times over the last 20 years. The creatures are so memorable, the banter's so fun, and the actor's doing such a great job that you kind of forget that the basic story of it and the mystery isn't all that interesting at the end of the day, because you're having so much fun on the ride, and that's really what matters. This is a great 90s blockbuster, one that of course will always have a special place in my heart as it came out when I was in high school, so it easily comes in at number 1. Remember to check out that playlist right over there with some of my other rankings of sci-fi action franchises. Also share your ranking of the Men in Black movies down below in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies too much.